Our research has focused on Chinese transnationalism. We noticed little evidence of political or economic transnationalism. Social dimensions of transnationalism were more evident to us within the Chinese community of Vancouver. Fitzgerald's definition of transnationalism is a nationality extending outside and across borders, and also involving more than one nation. Many Canadian Chinese argue against being emotionally involved in their origins in China, but transnationalism is evident in their use of language and choice of food. Our research has shown that some Canadian Chinese are contributing to a new Canada in the same way that settlers contributed to the Indigenous community.
Our observations of Chinatown, along with the interviews, enabled us to identify what we think are important aspects of social transnationalism, the significance of language and public social spaces. Chinatown's residents tried to create an environment of simultaneity through the use of language and choice of food. Chinatown is a place concentrated by the Chinese population. However, over time, the significance of this space has changed as a younger generation of Chinese migrants have been able to carve out other spaces to practice transnationalism, such as Richmond, which you see here in the video. The Dr. Sun Yat-sen Garden was a space which has been created to reflect Chinese culture and garden space. Many of the plants within the garden have been donated by the municipality of Suzhou, as well as communities and organisations which label themselves as Canadian Chinese, such as the ones you see here. The plants within the garden mirror that which are found in Suzhou, such as bonsai plants, as the climate here is very similar to that of China, so perfect conditions can be replicated. This shows social transnationalism, as once that you step into the public space, you are transformed into China despite still being Vancouver and seeing many of the skyscrapers in the skyline. By having this garden within Chinatown, the residents take part in transnationalism through visiting and taking care of their garden.
We noted how the overall wealth of Chinatown was lower than other parts of Vancouver. Being situated directly next to the downtown east side gave the area a more run-down vibe. The streets and buildings were much less clean, including that of the Kuomintang building, which did not appear well maintained at all. However, despite this, we then went to Chauncey Heights, where we saw a completely different contrast. Chauncey Heights was an area comprised of large mansions and big gardens. We saw a distinct Asian presence within the area, with a Korean church and nursery as well. Also, although we weren't able to film it, we saw Asian influence in the architecture of some of the mansions. This shows economic transnationalism through the building of the houses and the design of gardens. This can also be argued as showing social transnationalism.
While walking through Chinatown, we noticed that the majority of the population we saw seemed to be older. We saw a distinct lack of younger people within the area. We observed that the demographic of Richmond was much younger, showing how multiple areas of Vancouver have large Chinese communities who practice transnationalism in different ways. In Chinatown, it is very much evident in the architecture and structure of the area, such as having gold dragons on red street lamps, whereas in Richmond, transnationalism is evident in the restaurants and cafes in the area.
The Kuomintang building was built in Chinatown in 1920. It was built as a headquarters with the aim of representing Chinese political power. Its design incorporated a hybrid of both Chinese and Western architecture. The building's purpose was to represent and oversee Chinese political centre point for the Kuomintang Party, who are regarded as the most prestigious Chinese organisation in Vancouver. In the present day, the Kuomintang building appears slightly degraded and now facilitates different retail outlets on its ground floor. This indicates a decline in the influence of the Kuomintang Party in the Chinese Canadian community. This possibly reflects current Chinese transnational politics. Despite this, many Chinese migrants still engage in occasional transnational activities, for example by visiting the Sun Yat-sen Garden, which is comprised of donations from the Chinese municipalities such as Suzhou, as well as Chinese Canadian political figures.